Where in your life are you not showing up in alignment? Where in your life are you not showing up as that greater version of you that you dream of becoming? I realized very recently, in the last 3 weeks to a month, that I wasn't showing up for this YouTube channel as I initially wanted to and envisioned. In fact, I had a lot of anxiety and resistances to initially starting a YouTube channel, but I was willing to do it because there was a part of me that felt confident enough that I had some wisdom to share from my 42 at the time years of life experience. I felt like I had been through enough challenges, healed a lot of core woundings and patterns with my parents, those people pleasing patterns, that fear of being seen. I had faced a lot of those challenges. However, starting a YouTube channel was something quite new to me, even though I had had some experience with public speaking, with teaching, with being in front of a smallish audience and presenting myself in a professional, thoughtful, mindful way. I still had a lot of anxieties about technology. And maybe for a lot of other people, it's the opposite. I think it's probably more common to have a stronger fear of public speaking, a stronger fear of visibly being seen. And while I still had some fear of being seen, my bigger fear was using new technologies. This is because I grew up in a household where my mom had a very limiting view of technology. She really couldn't use technology. She was just extremely resistant to it. I think I internalized her fears there. And while I've been a lot more functional with technology because I was a lot younger and I had to, I can figure out new technology is okay so long as I'm willing to go through the frustration of allowing myself to figure it out, which at times I haven't liked going through that frustration because sometimes it's not an intuitive technology and I'll get kind of annoyed with a technology when it's not very user friendly. So my threshold and patience historically for using and learning new technologies has been pretty low when it came to more of the nitty gritty specifics of using YouTube and becoming more strategic, learning some strategy of how to operate a channel, a successful channel. That was something that I had a lot of resistance to. And I think the reason I was able to get started with my YouTube channel, this was about 8, 9 months ago, late last year, was because my husband said, if you just record, I'll do the rest of it. And that took the pressure off in a way because I wasn't nearly as afraid of recording and being visible as I was of learning strategy and learning new technology. And that's just because I just don't have an intuitive knack or excellent ability. There are some people who are tech whizzes and it's just innate for them. More creative, aesthetic design, writing, more of the feminine, fluid arts is more intuitive for me. And anything that is more like a technology that you have to learn, there's this very specific approach and there's different strategies that are wise to learn. I just didn't have that authentic interest in learning that. So I had a lot of resistance because I knew I didn't feel like geeking out on this strategy and that strategy. In fact, I feared that it would make me too mental to do that. And I was even scared of managing the channel and figuring out how to respond to comments. And that was a fear that I've recently had to face and overcome because my husband hasn't really had the time and he wasn't spending the time I would have liked him to spend on managing the channel better. That's not to put him down. He was doing the best he could with circumstances. He's working full time, working on a new business. He's spread a little thin right now and has been for a while. And he also has his own mental blocks that he's working on and working through. But this is my channel and I needed to take responsibility for that. I am slightly annoyed that he promised me that, which he probably shouldn't have promised me because it gave this part of me that wanted to feel comforted by, oh, I don't have to learn new technology. I don't have to learn new strategy. I can just sit back and do what I'm already pretty good at, which is talking to an audience. Talking in front of a camera was kind of new, and I had some anxiety about that initially. So it wasn't super easy, but it was a lot less intimidating than challenging myself to learn strategy with building a YouTube channel, to challenge myself to learn the technology pieces. There was this part of me that wanted to be more passive about that wanted to focus on the feminine flow, just speak. That's why my thumbnails were so bad for so long, for 8 months. I took it upon myself. I made them so much better. That's a new skill set I just learned that I had a lot of resistance to. I also had resistance when it came to seeing myself in the YouTube channel, seeing my old videos. So there was still fear of visibility still lurking underneath that a little bit. I was fearing seeing myself because I was afraid of feeling anxious. Sometimes we don't like to look at pictures of ourselves or video of ourselves. And I think we're afraid of feeling a certain feeling, an uncomfortable feeling. And I've been afraid of watching any of my old videos of managing the YouTube channel because, in part, because of the technology, but secondly, also because I was afraid of seeing myself, which was a further abandonment wound I hadn't fully healed. There are always layers to healing this habit of abandoning ourselves, but I was afraid of seeing myself, which means that I was still abandoning myself because I wasn't willing to confront if I didn't like what I saw, if I felt like I was failing in some way or it wasn't enough. I have this very critical part of myself that I've worked with a lot through a lot of internal family systems work, a lot of radical forgiveness work, a lot of shadow work. While I've done a lot of that work, that critical part is still there. It was heavily ingrained as a child. My dad was a very critical parent, and I was expected to be perfect for him. So I have a strong perfectionist part that is slowly getting soothed and getting weaker and not as prevalent and strong, because if that perfectionist part had been in full gear like it had been a couple years ago, 10 years ago, especially, I would have even been able to start the channel. But I was able to start the channel, and in part because my husband gave me a free pass to not worry about most of it except for just recording and the content, which I felt more confident about. I was afraid of actually listening to any of my old videos, seeing myself. I didn't love how I appeared in my earlier videos. I was carrying extra weight. I didn't feel good in my body. Now I've lost over 42 pounds since those very first videos that I published in October, November of last year. I've gotten really strong, really fit, really muscular since then. I feel really good about my body now. So showing up and being visible in that way is less of a strain for me. But there's still some of that residue of seeing myself as I was back then. That was me. And I'm also meant to give that part of myself kindness and love and accept that part of myself that wasn't showing up in her greater potential, that part of myself that wasn't showing up in her light, that was very much dimming her light, that had a habit of overeating until I changed that. It was December of last year is when the changes really started and has led to the body that you see now in front of you, this more slender, fit, more confident, and better posture too. It has been a process of letting go of old habits, of avoiding really stepping into my true power, my authentic light. It feels so good to share this wisdom, to share this light in this more empowered, embodied way. It's been a lot of change. I've really had to do a lot more shadow work more consistently. I've had to meditate every day. I am walking every day over 3 miles. I am going to the gym 4 to 5 times a week. I'm going to occasional hot Pilates class as well. I'm taking so much better care of my body. I've been way more intentional about what I eat and what I consume, and I track my macros now. All of those habits have really supported me in shifting the outward to be more attractive and to also feel more confident. It's not so much about looking better on the outside to others to gain something from other people, to gain that external validation, but I just feel so much better. I stand and sit taller. I talk with more confidence and more poise. People come up to me and ask me, "What have you done? How have you been able to transform so fast?" And I express what I've been doing and how I've been changing. And a lot of those changes really started with the inner work. It started with choosing not to keep doing the same things, choosing to stop and starve out the old habits, but with love and compassion and doing those consistent meditations every day, that shadow work, those somatic meditations. I'll provide some links in this video to past meditations that I recorded. I have a video on IFS and a radical forgiveness, so I can link those videos in the comments section of this video. So go ahead and check those out if you'd like. It really has been a process of consistently doing that work, showing up for myself very differently. I actually didn't have the energy or the desire to take care of my hair very well, then put on makeup. I actually like putting on makeup now. I like doing my hair. I don't do it every day, but I do it a few times a week now, especially for a video or if I'm going out to lunch with a friend or a special occasion. It feels really good to take that extra care, to take such good care of my skin, to feel myself glowing up in a way. So, if there are areas of your life where you haven't been showing up as your greater self, you find yourself avoiding doing something because you're fearful. Maybe it is starting a YouTube channel like me, which I did, but I started it in this not fully there, not fully taking responsibility kind of way, like halfway. I was recording, I was considering what I would say before I said it. I was putting some thought and reflection into that, but I wasn't taking care of the visual aspects of the video at all. I was just hitting record. I even had the phone flipped with the video facing myself. I was recording the wrong way that distorts the actual video quality a little bit. It's better if you have a camera lens facing yourself. And I have a high quality phone. I have a nice newer iPhone. So it should be recording high quality video, but that's also something I'm going to look into. Is there something better I could do to improve the video quality, as well as taking care to create nice thumbnails that are actually attractive, that make you want to click on a video? Thinking a little bit more about the text that goes into the video, those calls to action, that description, all of that. Taking more care with all the aspects of creating a YouTube channel, comments. There are so many different aspects to it. And I knew that those existed, but in the beginning, because it already felt like enough of a leap at the time to just create a video. So I wasn't thinking about the additional aspects of the channel. I was just hitting record and I wasn't putting on makeup, and I would just throw on a good shirt and brush my hair. And I was really doing the minimum just to do it because I felt like I couldn't put more effort than that into it. In order to do it, I had to just do it without overthinking it and putting in the effort. And I guess if you're just starting out and that's the only way you can get yourself to start, maybe that is a good option in the very beginning. But because I had so much resistance to taking responsibility for my own content, it did take me about 8 months to overcome that, to really see it. Because before I was passing it off and conveniently ignoring it, I was passing that off to my husband, who I've seen as this more tech person. That was my excuse. This is an identity block I had. I'm not very technically good. I'm capable enough, but I'm not really good. And I don't have a sincere interest in technology like he does. So if he can, like he promised, manage those technical aspects, then I can do this. Otherwise, I didn't feel like I could. And so I had to work through that. And I have now worked through that a lot more. Not going to say it's fully gone. I still have a lot more strategy to learn, but I'm going to take my time, because if I try to learn it all at once, I'm going to overwhelm myself. And then it's quite likely that that part of me that was resistant in the first place would shut down around that. So I'm going to lean on all of the healing work I've done, that shadow work, that wise counsel for myself, that loving witnessing when there is something that is challenging for you, because it varies for each and every one of us. For you, it may not be technology at all. Maybe you have a natural knack for it. I think that's awesome if you do. I always wanted to, but I just don't. But that could change too. And I'm open and willing to shifting that identity, to not letting that be set in stone, that I don't have this natural knack or ability. I can learn over time, but I'm also going to be compassionate. I'm going to let my identity become more flexible around learning the technology that it takes to create a more successful YouTube channel. And I'm going to do it in a way and in a pace that won't completely overwhelm me. I'm going to do that in a kind of a stepping stone, phasing way that will allow me to make gradual changes as I go and to keep improving things, just like I did the thumbnails this past week. I made them all much better. And it wasn't as hard as I thought it was. So if there's something that you feel a lot of resistance around, there's some kind of identity block that you have, it may not be anything tech wise, or it may not have to do with being visible. I think for a lot of us, being seen, being visible is a very common one. I fully encourage you to question and to do some shadow work. I do have a helpful shadow work video that I recorded some months ago that I'm linking in the description here. This video could work for anything. The purpose of it is to bring this loving, forgiving, compassionate, healing attention around a pattern that you have. And it was a pattern that usually originated in your early childhood, a pattern with your parents. For me, my dad was perfectionist and he hovered over my homework. So that created this perfectionist part who was actually afraid to be seen as less than perfect, to see herself as less than perfect, as not showing up in this awesome way, as struggling at first, as failing at first, which I did for several months early on in this channel until I finally was like, nope, I need to face my fear and take responsibility for my own channel and actually learn how to do the technical stuff around the channel and vet it to see, is this content really supporting who it's intended to support? That was something I was genuinely embarrassed by and am taking actions to resolve and fix and make better for you, because I do want to deliver the highest quality content. And I feel like I was acting from more of a self-preservation place before, where I still had an intention of delivering value and wanting to share this good, inspiring content, but I was also not willing or ready to get over my fear of seeing myself and of learning new technology. So those two fears were blocking me from showing up in a greater capacity that I'm starting to show up now. There was an opportunity for me to grow that I've now finally taken the reins of, and I'm willing and ready to learn. And I have been learning now for the past multiple weeks, about 3, 4 weeks. And I have been watching some of my old videos, trying to vet them. What do I want to improve? What do I want to make better? And I'm actively making those changes now. And the other thing that I also wasn't fully showing up for was I wasn't being real consistent before. I wasn't creating weekly videos, which is what I had intended to in the beginning. I was creating more bi-monthly videos, and in some months I didn't create any videos, which I do not feel proud of because that is not showing up in a consistent, aligned way. That's putting my own fears first versus putting my viewer audience first. I think there were some people early on that this channel was starting to support, and I feel like I let them down a little bit. I let myself down a little bit by not showing up more consistently in those early days, in those first really 7 to 8 months of the channel. And now I'm starting to show up a lot more consistently. In fact, I have more videos to post that will be coming out weekly, every single week. I'm going to be putting out a new video because I want to show up in my full integrity and be very consistent and with more confidence and providing as much value as I possibly can to you. This is a shift that took me months to move through this, but I finally feel like I have, and still am continuing to, because there's always different layers to any identity shift that we're working through. If you're watching this video right now, there's most likely an area of your life where you feel like you're not showing up as your greater self, as that self that you want to be, that greater potential self. There's something perhaps that you're avoiding, that you're resisting, that you're not fully willing to see, that you're procrastinating on. I'm not sure what that is. That could even just be homework. That could be a new job that you want to go looking for because you feel like you're stuck in this old job that's no longer serving you. But perhaps there's a better job out there waiting for you and something that you're interested in, but you're too afraid to actually go for it. So you've been hesitating or procrastinating because there's a lot of fear there. If that's the case for you, whatever that is, or maybe it's starting to date again, maybe you've taken a big reprieve from dating, which is sometimes a very wise thing to do. But also, if you've been feeling that desire to start dating again, to actually put yourself out there, because we can learn a lot from having dates, even if they feel like they're unsuccessful dates for a while. You've got to put yourself out there to actually eventually meet that person who is more aligned with you as you continue to grow. And a really aligned partner is someone who wants to grow with you. So if you've had a lot of disappointing dating situations in the past because you've been meeting a lot of people who seem very stuck and they don't want to grow alongside you, but you are on a growth path and you want to keep growing, then put that intention out there to the universe that you want to attract a partner who has that growth intention. And so if you've been avoiding dating, putting yourself out there, think about how you might approach that differently. Actually start doing the thing that scares you, put up that dating profile, but be intentional about what you write with that dating profile, who you want to attract, what you're looking for. If you're looking for a very intentional relationship and someone who can grow alongside you, then make that really clear and be discerning when you do go on those dates. Eventually, when the timing is right, when you have worked through more of your fears and your resistances, and you've set that intention and you've surrendered the outcome to a higher power, a divinity that is God or God source universe, whatever you want to call it, when you've surrendered the outcome, but you're focused on being intentional, then it's more likely that you're going to birth whatever that is that you want into your reality. And I had to learn to do that too with this channel. There is a part of me that wants to be very focused on outcomes. And that's also part of what I was avoiding initially with looking at myself, looking at my past videos and vetting my channel to make sure that the content, everything is good. I was initially afraid of seeing myself not being perfect on screen, not doing everything right. And because I was so afraid and so avoidant, I manifested exactly what I didn't want to see. I manifested a channel that wasn't performing so well. I manifested a channel that had poor visuals. I manifested all the things I was afraid of by avoiding taking more responsibility for my channel and passing most of it, except for the recording part and the content part, off to my husband. So if you are avoiding going on that date, if you're avoiding putting yourself out there because you're afraid of being seen, because you're afraid of being vulnerable, if you're afraid of not finding an aligned partner, if you're afraid that you're just going to keep meeting more frogs who aren't going to grow with you or are very stuck in life, if you have those fears and those resistances, then that's exactly what you're going to keep getting mirrored back to you. That's what you're going to keep seeing manifested in your reality. But the second that you're willing to show up and take responsibility for that thing that you're most afraid of, that you're afraid to face, that resistance that you have, and you're willing to own your own shadow in that, then you will shift that pattern. You will shift around that, and that reality will shift around you. I'm letting go of the outcome part of this, like how long it will take. I know I had a bit of a rocky start and not in my full integrity and not fully aligned start with the channel. That may actually delay things a little longer, but I know that I have been showing up better and there's been a little bit more engagement recently because I've been showing up better. I've been taking more responsibility. I've been fixing the thumbnails. I'm not avoiding looking at anything anymore so much. So because of that, things are starting to shift, but it may take some time. And I also have to be patient with that. And really, the other piece of this for me is to relax around the outcome, not be so like, okay, I'm showing up with more energy. I'm doing more. Shouldn't there be more engagement? Shouldn't there be more subscribers? Shouldn't there be more this, that, whatever thing? That is absolutely for me to give up to a higher power. And if you're struggling with something, whatever that might be, it may not be a YouTube channel, but if it's a dating situation, if it's applying for a new job, if it's starting a business that you're excited to start, but you've been too afraid that it'll be too hard or difficult, it's going to be hard or difficult either way. If you stay in a job that's unfulfilling, that's draining you of your energy, or that you're really bored at, or maybe it's a combination of things, that's difficult. That's hard. It's also hard to be an entrepreneur and start your own business, but one of them is hard and expansive, while the other is hard and contractive. So staying in that old job, avoiding going on a date so you can actually meet a soul aligned partner, you don't know until you actually get out there and try. Same thing with a business or a new job. You don't actually know until you get out there and try. So it's constrictive or it's a contraction if you continue to stay in that old situation that is still difficult because you're doing a job and you're putting your life force energy into a job or into a resistant situation where you wish it would change and shift in the case of avoiding dating. These are just two examples. YouTube channel is the other example because I was in a restrictive, contracted state around this channel for a while by avoiding taking more responsibility for my own channel and passing that off to my husband. So whatever your thing is, which could be dating, could be a job, could be starting a new business, whatever it is, leaning more into your art or your music. If you're going to do something difficult either way, you might as well go the expansive route. And I'm not saying if it's a job and that's your only source of income of supporting yourself, just drop it off right now. That's never a wise thing to do. But come up with a side plan, work on this other business. Don't use this job that you don't love as your reason never to start that more expansive opportunity, that new business that you're more excited about. Same thing, dating versus not dating. It also applies. That resistant energy is very constrictive, and it's difficult to hold so much preservation, life force energy and restrict around that versus if you expand and you allow yourself to put out the right intentions and to also give up the outcome to God's source universe versus being so tight around the outcome of what's going to manifest job wise or relationship wise, but you're actually being very intentional about what you want to birth and create, and then you're surrendering the outcome to a higher power, you're much more likely to learn and grow and to expand in that process and to eventually, whether it's sooner or later, call in that soul aligned partner or it's that soul aligned business. You've got to put in those reps. That's the only way I've gotten to where I've gotten with my fitness. I haven't gotten there in all areas of my life. Fitness and loving partnership. I'm married to a really good man who's very loving. He's not perfect, but I am in a aligned partnership, soul aligned partnership. So I have been able to attract that, and I have been able to attract my ideal body, which I'm still continuing to level up and get stronger around and leaner and more fit. I feel really good, and I'm at a dream weight in the low 120s now versus when I started this channel, I was 166 pounds. Now I'm 124. I feel very healthy, very fit. So I have been able to shift and change around those things by showing up really consistently. And I intend to do the same with the YouTube channel. Actually take the lessons I learned with fitness and relationships and apply them to business. Kind of funny how sometimes we're able to do it in one area of life, but not another at first because we're at different levels and we have different blocks or resistances. For me, it felt a little more easy to do with fitness and relationships, but I'm letting that spill over into my business life, my abundance, all of that now, much more. And I really hope that you'll do the same for whatever area of life you're working on, or maybe it's multiple areas of life at the same time. It can be really helpful to focus on one at a time just because it's quite likely that your consciousness, your body, mind, heart space could get overwhelmed by trying to shift and transform your identity in too many aspects of your life too fast. If you're feeling kind of low and depleted in all aspects of life, I would recommend starting with the one that you most want to transform and that you're most ready to transform and taking those steps to transform it, shifting your identity by showing up as a new you, which means choosing to do activities that your new self would do. That's the do part. You have to be, do before you have. I didn't have this body first. I had the old body and I had to first be and start showing up and doing as this 124-pound version of myself that I am now. I still had that 166-pound body, but I started to eat differently. I started to track my macros. I got a coach. I started going to the gym 4 times a week. I had to put in those reps for many months to get to where I am now. That was a process. It's July now. That was December. From when I started to where I am now, I had to start walking every single day to do that, over 3 miles a day. And that was me putting in the reps, but I had to make a strong decision to do that and to not deviate. I would sometimes go walking late at night in the winter. It was quite cold just to get my steps in for that day. I really didn't want to do it, but I showed up and I did it anyways. And that was the persistence and the consistency that has paid off and has given me the results that you're seeing now of that weight loss over the course of about 7 months. This applies for all areas of life, anything you want to shift and transform. And not everything's going to happen that fast in 7 months. And fitness is a little different area than some other areas like business and finance and relationships. So you want to give yourself grace. You want to be patient with yourself. It may take years to shift, especially if it's a business thing or you're shifting your finances. You just got to start and be patient and loving and kind with yourself because you are starting from a place where it's very difficult, but you can shift. You can change if you're consistent and you're persistent and you're putting in those reps and you're giving up the results, the outcome to God, source, universe, whatever you want to call it. You put in a couple reps 1 day, 2 days for a week, and then expecting to see massive results. I think some new YouTubers do that. But as I've been doing more work, I've been hoping to see more results climb faster. And I've noticed that creep in this expectation before. When I wasn't putting in work, I was in avoidance. I wasn't really checking or looking. But now that I've been putting in more work myself, I've noticed myself thinking more about progress and results and outcomes. And I have to be like, no, I know better. I need to take my focus off outcomes and I need to focus on being of great value to you, of thinking of you first, thinking of my channel first, putting myself second. I still have boundaries. We always want to have boundaries. However, at the same time, I am here to provide a lot of value for you. And I'm putting that first ahead of my own personal anxiety or desire to be a successful YouTuber. That will probably happen with enough persistence, patience, and time. In fact, it's most likely going to happen. However, in the meantime, my attention is to be on this channel, to be providing as much value as I can, just showing up as my true authentic self, showing up in my power, and being consistent with my channel. And these values apply for anything that you want to birth into this reality. For a new business, it's really important to be of service to whoever you are intending to serve. We can't afford to show up in this selfish self-preservation energy. And also, if we do for a little while, but we see through it, give yourself some grace and acknowledge yourself for seeing through it, and don't beat yourself up. Feel the grief of that, maybe some time lost, some frustration, some disappointment in yourself, embarrassment for not showing up in as much service as you know you could. In those early days of starting something new, you've seen that shadow. Allow that to be okay because it's in the past. It's no longer the case now. You have changed and shifted. So update that program, give yourself grace, and go forward as the new you. On that note, my message to end this video is align with your greatest potential. Let go of anything you're resisting and show yourself a lot of grace, and keep doing that difficult, expansive thing that your heart, that your soul is now calling you to do. Be the new you and enjoy the journey more than focusing on the outcome. If you focus too much on the outcome, that can be very limiting. That can leave you feeling depleted and scared and anxious and maybe even giving up if you're too focused on the outcome. Please like and subscribe. Thank you so much. Have a beautiful and blessed day. Bye for now.